Joining us today at another class on ethics and beliefs, Jewish ethics and beliefs. Maybe most of these ethics and beliefs, by the way, are universal ethics and beliefs. So welcome to the Chai Academy, and glad you're here. It's an honor to be talking to you today. So yesterday we focused on a completely different subject called Tikkun Olam, repairing the world, ethical monotheism, and pretty much we debunked a lot of the buzzword of Tikkun Olam and what it really means. Today's topic is a fascinating one, and I actually my article this week is going to be on this topic. This is what made me think of it as an ethic and belief. So today's topic is idol worship, atheism. So they're as we'll learn, they're closer than you think. So the first off, interesting to note that in the Torah there are 613 commandments. 50, or over 50, of these commandments are about idol worship, negating idol worship. Do not bow down to this, do not worship this, do not that, etc., etc. And there's so many different types of idols mentioned in the Torah. We don't really know who they are. Who's, Balsaphon, who is that? Melech, who is that? But it's a form of idol worship, etc. And the Torah completely prohibits. Right? The question is, what about atheism? What does the Torah say about atheism? So it's interesting. The Torah does not prohibit atheism. The Torah doesn't say that you are not allowed to be an atheist. In fact, the 10 Commandments, I'd rather call them the 10 Statements or the 10 Principles, because there's 613 commandments. But in the 10 Commandments, for the sake of clarity, the Decalogue, the first one is, I am the Lord your God that took you out of Egypt. So according to Maimonides says that is a commandment. There are 613 commandments. That is to be included. But many scholars don't agree with him. They say, no, that's not a commandment. To believe in God that took you out, it's not. That's a given. That's a fact. That's a pre-commandment. That's you can only keep the commandments if you got that one, if you got that belief. So they said, no, it is not included in the 613 mitzvahs. So is there admonishment against atheism or not? So it's seemingly the Torah was very concerned about idol worship, and it wasn't concerned so much about atheism. And even idol worship itself, the Torah always brought up immorality. Right, Moab, right? And the Moab sacrifices. He wanted to be king, so he sacrificed. He wanted to win the war, whatever. So he sacrificed his firstborn son to an idol worship. Or you worship the sun and the moon and the stars and the god of rain, the god of fertility. Torah wants to negate all that, right? It's just. As what are you doing? But it doesn't really talk about atheism. Sun, worshipping the sun. They tell the story with Abraham, right? That he worshipped the sun, and then when he realized that the sun sets at night, so he says, well, if it sets, that means it's really not all powerful. The moon and the stars and the constellation. This is a midrash. The moon and the stars, they must be powerful. Then comes clouds and blocks the clouds, and he says, I can't worship the moon and the stars either, the heavenly bodies, heavenly celestial beings, not heavenly models, and clouds, but then comes the wind and dissipates the clouds, and clouds are nowhere to be seen for 5 days. So he came to the conclusion that there's something greater than the sun, moon, and the stars, so he came to that conclusion actually intellectually, that there's some controlling force. So back to idol worship. Quite often, the Torah talks about an immorality type of idol worship. You walk your kid through fire, or you sacrifice your son, or you have to draw blood, whatever it may be. There's the Torah says that's immoral. That's immorality, and therefore, and in fact, that we read this on Yom Kippur afternoon. When Yom Kippur afternoon, God says, "Do not follow the ways of those idol worshippers, because Israel will the land of Israel will vomit you out." In other words, that you can't do this. You can't be an idol worshiper. That's very clear. That's clear from the Torah. Another interesting thing with idol worship is that it's only the only God if the love is the Lord your God, right? It says in the Shema, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God." God is commanding, demanding an emotion. With all these idol worshippers, it was more out of fear. That, if I don't worship, I'm gonna get, I won't have this and I won't have that. So therefore, let me sacrifice this. Let me prostrate here and prostrate there. With God, it's all about love. So when somebody worships God or doesn't worship God, and they say, "Look, no, I wasn't hit by lightning," that's because it's so ingrained from idol worship times. If every time you didn't do something that the Torah says you should do, you get hit by lightning, that would completely diminish our free will. So this concept was, nothing happened. Is really goes all the way back. So for God, it is love the Lord your God. Right? Love. Get to the point where you love. And also fear. Fear. There's lower level of fear. There's high level of fear. There's fear where you fear punishment, which once again is not really. It's more awe of God. You love Him out of awe, and they're kind of co-joined here, and you're awestruck, and therefore you love Him. But not fear in the conventional sense of fear, in the colloquial sense that you're gonna get smacked across the head with a 2x4 because you did not do this good deed or that good deed, or you ate a lobster tail, so therefore that's it. Expect a lead bullet. It doesn't. Judaism doesn't subscribe to that. Fear and punishment. We have this concept, but not an idol worshipper's view of fear and punishment. So, why doesn't the Torah address atheism? Atheism is that there is no God. None. Agnosticism is we don't know enough to say there is or there isn't. The Torah doesn't address that either. But why? Why? With atheism, and by the way, there's the American atheists, and there's they're having a conference, please God, in April, right? In Atlanta, I think it is. But there's so many atheists, and I don't know how many. Is it 6% or atheists? I don't know. But why doesn't the Torah address atheists? And to you, all non-believers out there, this I say to you: nothing. 50 plus commandments on idol worship. Nothing on atheism. 50-0. If this was a soccer match, it would atheism is completely disregarded. It's like God doesn't even care if you're an atheist. So the question is, why? Why doesn't the Torah address atheism? And I believe the answer is because the Torah believes there's no such thing as an atheist. We've all heard the quip, there's no atheists in a foxhole, or there's no true atheists in a foxhole. I remember I was once a summer rabbi, and I was in Quito, Ecuador, and I met up with this Jewish person. My job was to meet the community and introduce them to the local synagogue in Quito, so people who are somewhat estranged, Jews who are estranged. So I met with this guy, and he says, I'll meet with you, but I want you to know I'm an atheist. So I was all of 22, 23, and I said, what do you mean by that? So he says, I don't believe in God at all. So I said, so you don't, nothing? Zero? It goes zero. You don't pray? So he said, no, I don't pray at all. I said, at all, nothing. I said, well, what do you do if you want to make money? He goes, I make money. And if I make money, that's great. If I don't make money, I try and assess why I didn't make money, but I leave God out of the picture. Right? And so then I said to him, what happens when you get sick? He goes, oh, then I pray. Then I'll pray. So that's not a true atheist. An atheist has to have conviction, a moral conviction that there's no God. There's actually a very fascinating letter. Hello, Eric from the airplane. 36,000. It's probably the first. You're the only one on your block who's watching the Chai Academy from 36,000 feet up in the air. So there's a letter from the Rebbe, and I'll try and find it for you, where the Rebbe writes to a person, a self-professed atheist, and the Rebbe writes something to the effect of that: if you declare that you are once and for all, right, that you are an atheist, a complete atheist, and nothing but an atheist, the Rebbe says, okay, so you're an atheist, you're a declared atheist. He says, but the Rebbe says that if you're an atheist, but then you question as follows: you know why I'm an atheist? I'm an atheist because why would God allow this to happen? Where is God during the Holocaust? So the Rebbe says that's not a true atheist. That's not a true atheist. An atheist would not have that question. A true atheist, right, who says there's no God. So I'm not. This is not a direct quote from the Rebbe. It's my quote. But if there's no God, what difference does it make what a collection of a random collection of electrons do to one another? That was the Rebbe's point, right? That if you're a true atheist, that's it, and therefore, you can ask no questions of God at all. Period. If you're not a true atheist, then you're not a true atheist. And how do you know? If you say, I'm mad at God. I don't understand how the Holocaust could happen. And if there's a God, how could there be Darfur? And if there's a God, how could yada yada yada, right? So it is. The Rebbe said that's not an atheist. That's not an atheist. That's just a wishy-washy, flip-flopping politician who thinks that they've fooled you once again. So it's a fascinating letter. It's a fascinating letter from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he puts that person in his place. There's a great story attributed to Rabbi Manis Friedman. Manis Friedman is one of the contemporary day scholars, and Manis claims that he read it on behalf of one of the Lubavitcher Rebbes, that somebody was complaining, and he said this in this context. Someone was complaining to Manis and to Rabbi Friedman and said to him, I don't believe in God. I just don't believe in God. Because God is this, and God is that, and God is this, and I don't believe in God. So Manis told him this fantastic comeback. He says, the God that you don't believe in, I don't believe in either. What a concept, right? Yeah, I don't believe in your God either. It sounds pathetic. The God that I believe in, that's a different bailiwick. It's a different ball game. It's a different substance. It's a different, ballpark, not bailiwick, ballpark. It's completely different. The God that you don't believe in, I don't believe in him either. So that is a. So back to idol worship now. So we are commanded to love and fear God, and idol worship is for the most part just fear God. The Torah, I believe, does not believe in atheism. Just doesn't believe it exists. And I believe it goes something like this: that every person, by the definition of their makeup, their DNA, their creation, whatever word you want to use, their evolutionary process, if you don't believe in God. Even if you do believe in God, there's a evolutionary process. But every single person has to have some belief greater than themselves. And not must have, they do. They do have beliefs greater than themselves. They do have beliefs that this is the most important thing to me. This I'll worship. This I'll get behind. They may not use the word worship, but this I'll sink my teeth into. This I'll get behind. This I'll immerse myself in. This is going to become part of me. Right? And so you may not be the typical expression of God, G-O-D, uppercase G. So you call it by a different name. That's all it is. You call it by a different name. So the contemporary idol of today is money. People worship money. Got to be like the Jones. They make themselves sick. I mean, have you seen bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs that I've seen? Right? That's just showing off your idol. That's what that is. I'm not saying you shouldn't live nicely, and I'm not saying kids shouldn't have a bar mitzvah. I'm saying don't show off your idol. I'm not saying don't have a nice house. I'm saying have a nice house, have a nice car, but don't show off your idol for all to see. Take it to the extremes of extremes of extremes. So, on the dollar bill, the $100 bill, the $20 bill, the $50, the $10, the $5, there's a line, "In God we trust," and it's been there since the Civil War. And I think it's no coincidence that "In God we trust" is on the dollar bill, and it's not just because somebody wrote to the minister of the commissioner of the Treasury at that time saying we need to have this slogan, and he approved it. In God we trust teaches us that don't put this dollar bill, this $5 bill, this $100 bill, $500 bill, don't put it in front of everything else. Don't put it in front of your family. Don't put it in front of your God. Don't make it a priority instead of your country, instead of your cousin, instead of your people, instead of your state, and instead of your own spouse. And keep God in the forefront, and you'll be okay. But if you don't, if you worship the money, you will miss dinners with the kids. You won't be mentally present during the vacation. You will, you will miss the kids' shows and plays and baseball and soccer tournaments. You'll just miss. Why? Because all in pursuit of the almighty dollar. So that's, I think, one reason why in God we trust. By some godly way, it's on our money. And I think the other lesson is that if God you trust, then earn this dollar honestly. Remember, this is dollar. This is a holy dollar. You support your family with it. It's not negative. It's holy. You support your family. You pay your mortgage. You give charity. It's all this, right? But remember, honesty. Don't steal it, because if you believe in God and yet resort to thievery and chicory and Ponzi scams, then you haven't thought out your view of God properly. There's something completely wrong with your thought process, and you need a tweak. So that's a contemporary idol. So the atheist don't believe in God, but may believe in money, may worship money. Worship of self, the ego. Ego is an acronym, easing God out, right? Arrogance, right? These are all bad attributes. Why? Because you've left no room for anybody else. You're worshiping yourself. You know, the Torah says that if a person's successful, they should never say, "Wow, look what I did. My ingenuity, my prowess, my hard work. Look where it got me." Right? The Torah says you can't say that. Why? Because you're not partnering with God here. There's no room for God. You've just kicked him out of the equation. So God said, "Don't do that. I'm your partner." So worshipping of money is a god. Tell me if you disagree. So, and I believe, by the way, these are the two driving forces behind politics, right? The worship of money and the worship of self. And I believe it is the demise of there's so many immoral acts that come of these two. You may have somebody who a leader who will do something not good for his or her constituents because of ego. May not step down when they should step down because of ego. You could have a leader who will destroy their country because of destroy their state, country, whatever it is, because of money. I think a lot of ills come from these two idols, but it's not just these two idols, right? There are others, and the truth be told, there are many others form of idol worship. Right? So take Hitler. Hitler didn't believe in God. Hitler was a pantheist. Hitler believed that nature rules. Because Hitler didn't believe in God. By the way, the atheists say he was a Christian, the Christians say he was an atheist. Hitler was a pantheist. So because he believed that nature rules, he therefore developed this whole superiority thing. We are naturally superior. And therefore, Jews are not. They're inferior. Gypsies are inferior. Homosexuals are inferior. And the intellectuals are inferior. How he got there, I don't know. But intellectuals are inferior. So therefore, they're inferior, so they can be exterminated. And Hitler played God. Not only did he, he actually was God, with his decisions that he made. And every decision was a poor decision, clearly. And I always say this, when I think of Mengele, may his name be blotted out, may he rot in hell, may his bones rot. Mengele, at the camps, when he had the thumb, and to the right meant life, and to the left meant death, that's God. That's God. We read that in on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. In this coming year, who shall live? Who shall die? Right? Mengele decided, not God. So that is Hitler didn't call it God. Mengele didn't call it God. Goring didn't call it God, right? But Hess didn't call it God. But it was a warped. They replaced one God for another. They replaced the true God. Right, a belief system that's altruistic and right with their own version of God, which was selfless. Our race is superior. I think of Marxism. I think of communism. Right? They also it's a warped ism. Right? It's not it's just another ism. So you have beliefism, atheism, agnosticism, Marxism, communism, Nazism, Judaism, right? It's the isms, are drive me crazy. But think of this. Think of Stalin. Stalin defended his canon to death, right? He was an atheist. Karl Marx was an atheist. Mao Zedong was an atheist, but they made decisions that the people are, the enemies of the people, and therefore everybody's got to have this, and you could be put in gulags if concentration camps if you disagree, and and nobody should make too much money, and they made decisions. Right, and they couldn't be voted out either. So we have politicians that make bad decisions, but thankfully, we are a republic, and we have a democratic system, as flawed as it is, where it's not, poor decisions are made. Definitely, even now, poor decisions are made. We lived recently through so many poor decisions that are made, But it's these people. Karl Marx, right, thought he was better than thou. He thought he was God. So did Stalin. So did Lenin, right? So did Brezhnev, and I can't even think of all these loonies from the past. Communism by definition is a form of worship. It's a warped worship, and so is so many other isms. So going back to atheism, everybody needs, and everybody does, believe in something greater than themselves, right? And you need to. I think of eugenics. That was a failed, belief. And I'm sure at this conference of atheists, April 15th to the 22nd, they're going to talk about so many causes that they could help in, and they're going to do wonderful, wonderful things. The problem is, they'll do these wonderful things until they'll decide it's not wonderful. There's no guiding light. That's the problem. Good people, there's not, Torah doesn't denounce atheism. It's just that how you can decide, that this is okay, and then change your mind. This is not okay, right? The Torah, which is by God, has given us a book, a code book, a book of codes, like the town of Huntington has, codes. Torah's a manual, Torah's expectations, its morals, its values, and they don't shift. Right? And I think we discussed it. Last week, 2 weeks ago, that during the Spanish Inquisition, these people believed in God, but their warped version of God, right? Their warped version of God. That's what they believed in, and therefore they killed people in the name of God. And anybody that kills in the name of God, are not religious. They may look the look, they may talk the talk. If they crusade up from Europe to the Middle East and kill everybody on their way in the name of God, it is ungodly. Hitler was ungodly. Stalin, ungodly. Lenin, ungodly. Mao Zedong, ungodly. Right? And on and on and on. So the 613 directives, that will never change, because it's godly. And since it's godly, it's permanent. Remember, our belief, and it's a fundamental belief, the Torah wasn't written just for the Hebrews in the desert. Torah was written for all times. The Torah is a manual for life. and it's not subject to change. So while eugenics, we discussed that, eugenics is to see how can we get the perfect human, playing around with genetics and get the perfect human. They thought that was a good idea. Well, guess what? Now we don't think it's a good idea. Why? Because you can't play God if you're not God. You're human. To err is human. You're fragile. You're frail. Your thinking is fraught with just flesh and blood thoughts. You could be swayed. You could be convinced. You could be bribed. You could be hypnotized. It is. And if you still go on with your belief, even though you hear people scream from the rooftops, "This is wrong, 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 wrong," you're not worshiping. You're not worshiping God. You're worshiping your thought process. Hope I made sense. If you have any comments, please feel free to comment here. Notice there's a very silent crowd. The only person that commented was somebody who should theoretically be nauseous, being so high in the air. But if you have any questions, rabbi@thechaicenter.com or here. And you please have a good day, and we will touch base again. You may view this and all our other classes at thechaicenter.com/academy, or on Spotify, on Anchor, and YouTube. Hello, Amy. And I'd ask you a favor once again. If you enjoyed this class and you can think of somebody that should watch this half hour of thoughts, then by all means, I ask you to please share it. And please share the Chai Academy, period. Thank you. Be well.